Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, February 1st, 2016. First day of February already.
Goes fast. Commissioner Davis, James, and Jacinto are present. President James, we do have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Eva Sung, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Pat Chang, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Chris Smith, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Eddie Chavez, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Sherman Torres, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we did not receive any speaker cards under general public comment nor any of the regular items for today's agenda.
Okay, is there a second to my motion? We'll close general public comment. Is there a second to my motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of Wednesday, January 13th, 2016 by Commissioners Jacinto and Repenning? Any objection? That'll be the order. Let's go to agenda item number 1. A motion, Commissioner Jacinto, Council District 3, recommending the board deny the appeal of the Bureau of Engineering determination to locate an above-ground facility adjacent to 5724 North Oso Avenue, and Jeff Ledoux.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Ledoux. I work for Bureau of Engineering Central District. The AGF application for us today is an AT&T, what they call light gig cabinet for high-speed internet. It's due to be placed across from 5724 North Oso Avenue on the Khalifa Street side of the lot. Basically, where it is there's an abandoned school there. It's all fenced off, and so it's across the street from the appellant's property, sort of kitty corner across from it. The appellant in this case is Darrell Finley, and his main reason for appeal says that the proposed cabinet is in his direct line of sight. If you've seen the board report with the photos in it, you'll notice that his house actually does not face the street that it's on. His house actually faces Oso, and his doors and windows in the front of his house look across. So in other words, for him to see it, if he steps up to the his front door and looks diagonal across the street, then he could see the proposed cabinet. He did propose that it be placed at a certain location several hundred feet away from his property. I did do a site visit out there with AT&T, and if I was to propose a different location, what I would do was just move it a little further west so that it was across from his backyard near the property line between his property and the property behind him there, so that even if he went up to his front door and looked diagonally across, he wouldn't see it. So if I was to pick a location, that was what I recommend, is just moving it about 140 feet west of where it is.
If you were to do that, would it change the sphere of notice that you would have to give?
No, as long as we kept it 6 feet back from the property line dividing his property from the next, his backyard neighbor, no, it would not change the notification pattern.
I would be inclined just to grant this and let the Bureau put it where it would like to put it, within that, in a way that is most beneficial to this resident.
It's a possibility. I do know that AT&T has concerns with moving it from where they have proposed it, because they do know what my recommendation would be as far as where I would put the cabinet. So the AT&T is here present if you wish to hear from them.
Sure. Is the protester here as well?
Yes.
Mr. Lenley or Finley? Is Mr. Finley here too? Mr.
That-
Finley?
I'm not sure. He was supposed to be here.
Mr. Vandergriff?
Greg Vandergriff, Central District. Mr. Finley called this morning to say that he was caught in traffic. He is on his way here to this hearing.
Okay, well then let's hold number one, if that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Ledoux. We'll talk to Mr. Finley and we'll talk to AT&T and figure out what we can do. But I tend to agree with the board report, unless there's something that we can agree on. Moving to agenda item number 2, Bureau of Engineering recommend the board approve the request of United Engineering and Construction Incorporated to withdraw their bid submitted on January 20th, 2016 in connection with the Temescal Canyon Park Stormwater Best Management Practices Phase 2 project. For agenda item number 2, John.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Saldine with the Bureau of Engineering, Proposition O program. We did receive bids for the Temescal Canyon Park Stormwater BMP Phase 2 project on January 20th. We received 5 bids. The apparent low bidder was United Engineering and Construction, and they did submit a request to Mr. Campos, Executive Officer. On January 25th, they requested to withdraw their bid due to a mistake, a mathematical error. And our PAC division, the Project and Award and Control Division, in conjunction with the Propo staff, and have reviewed their withdrawal request and acknowledge receiving their claim of a mathematical error. And their request does comply with the Public Utility Contracting Code for granting bid withdrawals and as stipulated in general instructions and information for bidders. Therefore, the Bureau of Engineering does recommend that they be allowed to withdraw their bid. And I am here to answer any other questions or comments that you may have.
Mr. Jordan, this happens every now and again. Would you just kind of go over with us as a reminder what the grounds for a permissible withdrawal of bid and what that means for that potential bidder going forward?
Yeah, certainly the Public Contracting Code does allow a bidder to withdraw its bids after the bids have been opened. It specifies the criteria. In this case, the mathematical error the Bureau has looked at and has found to be sufficient, and I see no reason to disagree with that. The code has a time frame within which you may withdraw your bid, and I do believe they're timely here. If the board, for whatever reason, chooses to reject all bids and submit this project out for a rebid, then any bidder who had withdrawn its bid will be precluded from rebidding. And that's about it.
Okay. And they're precluded, obviously, from rebidding even if we don't reject all bids because the bids are closed.
Well, yes. I mean, their bid, they would be withdrawing from this bid.
Right, they're withdrawing, but they
and
cannot
they're no
rebid.
Yes.
On this project.
They will not be eligible to receive an award on this project.
Got it.
Based on the current set of bids because they're withdrawing, or a rebid if for some reason we choose to rebid.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Commissioner Cinto.
Thank you. John, so the apparent responsive low bidder is the second bidder. Is that what we do in terms of point of order, in terms of how we deal with the bidding
Yes,
process?
the remainder of the bids, there were 6 bids received. The remainder of those bids are being reviewed right now, Commissioner, and that is under determination right now, is who would be found to be the lowest responsive bidder, yes.
Thank you.
And if this one had been the low bid, we would have just gone to the next low bid. Right. Anything further? Okay, is there a motion on number 2? By Commissioner Cento, seconded by Commissioner Repenning. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 2. Any problem sending number 2 forthwith? We'll send number 2 forthwith. Thank you, Mr. Saldine. Agenda item number 3, our update on our construction services contract from the Bureau of Engineering. And we have Sean Kenny.
Yes, good morning. My name is Sean Kenny. I'm the Senior Construction Engineer with the Bureau of Engineering's Environmental Engineering Division. And I'm here today to report on a quarterly report on our construction service contracts. We currently have 2 in place. But before I go further, I would like to introduce the manager of these contracts. I failed to do so 3 months ago. So I would like you to meet Richard Andelin. And
Hi, Richard.
Rick has been in charge of our Cisco contract for the last 2 years. He recently promoted, and now he's also taking on the responsibility of our emergency on-call contracts. So they are both our kind of go-to contracts, and Rick is in charge of both of them. So he's a real critical part of our group, and we do a lot of work through these contracts. So, but briefly also, to the Cisco contracts are construction vehicles that target small to mid-sized projects that need to be completed quickly, and it also is a vehicle to provide support during the design phase of larger CIP projects. We will do sometimes potholing, as-built work, that kind of thing, investigative work with these contracts. Today I'm reporting on our Cisco 8 contract, which is in the final phase. We are no longer awarding new work to this contract. We are just wrapping up work that's been awarded. Also, we have now implemented Cisco 9 contract, and that's in its first year, and I'm going to be focusing mostly on that. The Cisco contract is a competitively bid contract with a 3-year duration and a budget of $12 million. It has been the last few revisions. Bidding is open to all contractors that are able to perform specialized work across an extensive range of disciplines on a very short notice. Subcontractors are an important part of the success of this work, and during the bid phase, there's a required outreach effort to all general contractors through the BAVN system to identify a pool of potential subcontractors. As work is identified and issued, the Cisco contractor solicits quotes from those subcontractors and others, and we receive them in a proposal, evaluate them, and negotiate on a case-by-case basis. So in summary of our report, for our Cisco 8, our contractor is Colich & Sons. They are, as I said, are wrapping up this contract. We have identified and awarded nearly $9.8 million of our $12 million contract. And we were able to establish a really good relationship with our general and subcontractors, and we're able to get a good participation there. And I'm sorry, our dollar amount awarded is about $11.8 million. I'm looking at the wrong one. And so for minority business enterprise, we were able to exceed our anticipated utilization with 12.2%. Women business enterprises, we also were able to increase it from above the 2% target to 7.4%. Small business enterprises, we had 18.8%. We were unable to get emerging business enterprise in this contract. And our disabled veterans business enterprise, we were able to get 2.8% of the 3% that was anticipated. We traditionally struggle with emerging business enterprises. Our type of work is very specialized. It's tough to get people that aren't, pretty seasoned subcontractors to take the risk, and we have to be careful bringing in people that aren't pretty seasoned. So that continues to be an area we struggle, but we felt like we were able to do a pretty good job with the other areas. Again, we have no new projects here, and so this will be coming up to we'll be wrapping this up in the next few months. We'd like to have an overlap of contracts, so we have our Cisco 9 contract in place now for about 8 months. We've just now started to focus on awarding work under this contract. We've identified about $2.3 million worth of work. As we identify this work, we come to the board when it's over $100,000 and get your approval. And so in our summary report, our list of projects that are over and under $100,000, these all are posted on the BAVN as they come on a quarterly basis. We update on BAVN to let them know when these projects are coming. They are not always ready, but they are. We're in the process of putting together bid packages. So we do that outreach. And given that this is a fairly new contract, you're going to see that some of our utilization isn't quite where we have been able to do previously, but we expect that we're going to be able to improve on that as we develop more relationships with our general and subcontractors. So for that, our report's providing an update excuse me, for minority business. Our anticipation of 6%, we have been able to get 2.2. For women business, our anticipated of 2%, we're at 1.6. Our small business enterprise of 20%, we're at 6.1. Again, emerging business, we haven't been able to get anything. And disabled veterans business, also, we haven't yet been able to bring them in, but it's early.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. Any questions for Mr. Kinney regarding the update on the Cisco contract? Commissioner Jacinto.
Yeah, Mr. President.
And Commissioner Davis.
I just wanted to point of order. It's on the correspondence from Mike Cirillo has 2015 as the date of the report. On the second, on Cisco 9, just tell them to correct that. It's 2000.
Oh, mine has 16.
There,
is it? Yeah. Well, on the,
you're
on the
right.
8 or 9. On 9.
There are two reports.
Oh, I'm looking at the other. Oh, yeah.
Cisco 9.
Yeah.
8
Okay.
has 2016, 9 has 2015.
What's the date?
Yeah.
It should
We
read
apologize.
January 21st, 2016.
That'll be the last time.
So the report will be amended accordingly. Commissioner Davis.
This was Cisco 8 we just discussed, right?
Cisco 8 and 9.
And 9, okay. In terms of Cisco 8, I want to say that it appears that we've made some considerable progress as it relates to women business enterprises, and I think that is great. And in terms of minority business enterprises, we have slightly maintained in a progressive way what we achieved last year in terms of 12%. You did mention that the small business enterprise, we weren't able to sustain what we achieved last year. And I know and realize that every project is different and brings about different small business opportunities for each project. But in terms of why we weren't able to increase small businesses, was there any factor that you thought was the reason for our underachievement as compared to last year's goal?
Nothing specific, but as a rule, it is also difficult to bring in a lot of small businesses because, again, there's some risk. But I think maybe as the years went on, we got into some maybe more challenging jobs. We did have some work on our 1 mile outfall. We had some other areas that really is not going to be for small businesses. But
I see. And then in terms of the emerging businesses, we were able to achieve 8% last year and really not any this term. I don't know what it was we did last year.
Oh, I think I need to explain.
Yes.
The first column is an anticipated level.
Oh, is our estimate.
Yeah, so And
I
then,
see. That's
then
what
is
you-
what's
okay, gotcha.
actually is what
Okay,
we're
got it.
achieving. So we were anticipating 25% small business. We were able to achieve 18.8. I do think that was kind of steady across the quarterly reports, but
Gotcha. Okay. And in terms of emerging businesses, you said that, and I think in your last report, if I can recall, we did kind of point out the challenge and including emerging businesses. And so I guess we will continue to reach out in hopes that we might be successful on some work.
yes.
Knowing that all work won't be.
Yes, we are open to it, but it's just, it's difficult.
The other thing is the disabled veterans business enterprise seems to be also a challenge for us in terms of our anticipated goals that we are setting. Are there any factors that exist in the work that we do in outreach to disabled veterans that makes it a bigger challenge than anticipated?
No, but it's kind of a fluid situation. On Cisco 8, we were able to bring in a subcontractor that had met those qualifications, a disabled veteran. He is retired, so now we don't see him on Cisco 9, but we're going to just have to continue to find more people to participate.
Well, great. I am happy of what we've been able to realize with regard to women business enterprises in hopes that as we continue to do the work, we can discover new strategies and ways in which maybe we might outreach to the potential opportunities. And I realize that every project is not going to be an opportunity, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to think of new strategies to help to increase some of those areas that you discussed. And I thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Penning.
I wonder, you may not know this off the top of your head, but I wonder if it would be useful to reach out to the Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs. I know the mayor has a big goal as far as veteran jobs, veteran homelessness, and I know they work, with a lot of different agencies and organizations that might be a resource to us in terms of helping us reach out.
We can certainly do that.
And I can help.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I would like to see us do that at any rate. And Sean, if you mentioned this, I may have missed it, but comparing Cisco 8 to Cisco 9, in Cisco 8 under Minority Business Enterprise, under MBE, we anticipated 12%. We actually got to 12.2. So we did better with our anticipation rate. But we dropped the anticipation rate for Cisco 9 down to 6%. What was the reason for deciding that our anticipation level should drop when, in fact, in Cisco 8, we actually did better?
I don't have that information myself. I wasn't involved with the creation of this contract, but I will find out.
I would be curious to know, and maybe even have whoever did just. I might want it part of the public record. So, for the next quarterly update, I would like to have brought to whoever could give me a call. Just give me a call in the next couple of days, but I would like it in the public arena as well. So, for the next quarterly update, we saw an uptick, which is good on MBE, but when we did the anticipation numbers, they were lowered 6%. I think we discussed this in the last quarterly report, but I don't remember what the answer was. And so maybe my recollection could be refreshed through one method or the other.
Let me do that. I suspected it was more of historical data that maybe drove that, but I'll find out. We will give you a call.
Thanks. Commissioner, I'm sorry, Mr. Campos?
Mr. President, also, if the board may want to consider looking at ways that you can curtail the underutilization, if you will, on some of these categories. For example, in the small business enterprise, not only just a progress status update from staff, but also looking at areas that we are projected to be underutilized, such as those in Cisco 8, on the Cisco 9, if we're on the same track record, not only providing this progress status update, but ways that we can curtail that. In other words, what are we doing to hit those goals or even exceed those goals? So not just so much as what we've authorized in terms of work and what we've achieved, but in areas that we project that we're going to be underutilized, what are we doing in terms of next steps and action plans? I think that would be beneficial for the board to
It's
consider.
helpful. I think it's helpful as the contract progresses. It's hard to say, perhaps, in the earliest days of the contract that we're not going to get to the utilization rate.
Agree, and as of right now for Cisco 9, you're about 20%.
19%, yeah. Okay.
Right. Right now, our focus is utilizing the BAVN system as a way to reach out better, but we are open to public type of forums also to participate. There was one recently, it didn't seem like a good fit for us. It was more like service contract, but we are looking more for the contracting community. We'll be working with ConAd to participate in those kind of events.
I'm glad to see that we are utilizing BAVN more. I think it can be a great, job aid across the board in city contracting. So I'm very glad to see partnership there.
It has been.
I wanted to say one more thing, Sean.
Yes, sir.
The emerging businesses, and I know it's difficult, and we've just discussed that, but my hope was that at least we would be able to achieve a minimum amount of emerging businesses in hopes of developing a pipeline for the next generation of individuals who over time will be doing this work. Where does the pipeline come from in terms of the backbench, if you will, for the next generation of individuals who will be primes and generals, and when and where and how do they start? Do you think that emerging businesses could be the place where, in fact, if they were lucky enough or were a good match, that they could get into our pipeline and then grow and develop into those positions in the future? So I hope that maybe that's something we consider.
We're open to that. If there's, maybe the mayor's office can help us there too. We are glad to do all those things. Our focus really is on building in the field, but we know this is important, and we're glad to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go back to agenda item number 1 and recall the item. I did receive a speaker card from Daryl Finley, who is the person who sent in the objection. And since he wasn't here for the beginning of the discussion, why don't we just start agenda item number 1 over again. Motion, Council District 3, recommending the board deny the appeal of the Bureau of Engineering determination to locate an above-ground facility adjacent to 5724 North Oso Avenue. Mr. Ledoux, why don't you start again, now that we have everybody in the room?
Once again, my name's Jeff Ledoux. I work with Bureau of Engineering Central District. This is an AT&T Light cabinet to provide high-speed internet to homes in this area. The cabinet is adjacent or across the street from 5724 North Oso Avenue on the Khalifa side of the street. The appellant, Daryl Finley, appealed this on the basis that this is in his direct line of sight. His home does not face the street that the cabinet is on. It's actually the cross street. And as stated before, his door and windows do not face the side of the street that it's actually on. If he comes to his front door and looks diagonally across from the cross street, then he can see the cabinet.
There's a house in between his house and the location of the cabinet, correct?
Actually, no. This
number 3?
On the big picture, his house is number 3. That is Daryl Finley's house.
Okay.
And so he's the corner lot there, and it is diagonally across from his corner lot on Oso.
Oh, it makes it look like his house is next to.
Yeah.
Got
No, the lot that it's actually next to, like I said, is an abandoned school that's all fenced off.
Got it.
So he's sort of kitty corner from it. His recommendation was to place it a couple hundred feet up the street and around the corner. We did do a site visit
Which corner? Around the corner closest to number 2 or closest to number 5?
by number 2.
Okay.
It would be the south of number 2 on
Got it.
that street that house faces. Now, we did do a site visit there, and if I was to recommend a site, I would put it about 140 feet west on Oso, which would put it within about 6 feet of his back property line. That way, even if he came to his front door and looked, he would not see the cabinet. The house his neighbor does not face Oso, faces that other cross street there, so he would not see it from his front windows or doorway, and it would be directly across from Mr. Finley's backyard.
Okay. We have a representative from AT&T here?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Could we hear from the representative from AT&T? Good morning, sir. You can both state your names. We keep a record, of course, so it's helpful if you'd state your name for us.
Good morning, Commissioner President James, commissioners, and city staff. My name is Kevin Tamaki. I'm with AT&T External Affairs, and with me,
John Johnston with AT&T Engineering and Construction.
So could you just summarize for us how you chose the location in the specific block that it's on? I see the proposed location. How was that chosen, and why was that the necessary location for the oral record?
Okay.
I've read what's in the board.
I'll have John.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a pole located at that location where we're placing the cabinet, and we are having our facilities come down that pole and then go back up that pole. This is as central as location as we can find to the whole community that's served by this, what we call a distribution area, and this is the most ideal location for it.
Okay. And the benefit that this additional equipment is providing to the community is
super high-speed internet. This is taking us to the next generation of internet access.
Okay. Any further questions for AT&T before we move to Mr. Finley? Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Finley, you have a speaker card on. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So obviously my opposition to the cabinet is because of the fact that it is going to be directly across the street from my home. Of the houses on that particular street, there's my house and my neighbor's house. We do have basically direct line of sight to that cabinet. When you exit our properties, you walk down the driveway, you're going to see that cabinet. My suggestion was to move it down the street around the corner where there's currently already a pole there. And if it was located adjacent to that pole, the house, it will still be up against a school that's abandoned, but the home directly across the street from that has greenage, foliage that covers essentially that whole side of the house. So there wouldn't be a direct line of sight from that home. And then the other two houses on the other two of the four corners wouldn't have direct line of sight because that pole would be in the way of where the cabinet is that I'm suggesting for that placement. I don't know. I know that there was a suggestion to move it approximately 200 feet to the, I think it's to the west, from where it is proposed at this point. Again, looking out from my backyard, I will have a line of sight of that. Every other house that's on that has a backyard that is up against that street has a wall that is high enough. It's probably 7 or 8 feet tall. There won't be a direct line of sight I have a slotted fence, and you can see through the fence, so I will still have a sight line to that cabinet. And my fence is much lower than, the other 3 houses on that block. So that was, again, my suggestion was to move it around the corner so that, it wasn't as offensive. I don't know if there are any other options as far as dropping it into the, digging a hole and putting the cables underground, if that's an option. I'm not sure. But again, it's not optimal for myself nor my neighbor.
Okay, thank you. So any questions for Commissioner Jacinto?
Yeah, Mr. President, can I call Jeff Ledoux back up again
Yes,
and
yes,
ask the
please,
question?
Mr.
Jeff?
Ledoux.
Thank you, Mr. Finley. Jeff, can you talk a little bit about the ordinance as it talks about sort of line of sight impact, please? Give us a little bit more of what the ordinance says regarding the AGF.
Basically, the ordinance tries to line it up with everything else in the public right-of-way so that it doesn't stick out by itself, and also to avoid as much as possible the fronts of properties and big windows. In this particular case, the location that was proposed by AT&T is not directly in front, like I said, of the front door or the windows of the appellant's house. It is catty corner across the street, so you have to actually walk up and almost out the front door and look this way to see it. So from that standpoint, it does meet the requirements of the ordinance in that it has avoided the major line of sight or viewscapes of the properties that the other single-family homes that are there.
Mr. President, I'm also going to comment on what you had talked about earlier regarding if it changed to another location of the application, it would change the sphere of notification, area notification, which could then have a domino effect of a continuing type of appeal. And that's why the recommendation for this was to deny the appeal.
Understood. Any further questions, Commissioner Jacinto? Could I ask one more question of AT&T? Either of you. Regarding the alternative, recognizing Commissioner Jacinto's point, but the alternative pole that's around the corner, what was your response to that?
By moving the proposed location of the cabinet to the west on Khalifa towards Oso, it really doesn't resolve the problem. In fact, the neighbor to the west of the appellant has a similar window configuration facing Khalifa, but does not have the benefit of a fence, which is over 5 feet high, that the appellant does have. So it really is you might even consider it a worse situation for that particular property owner.
So was that taken into account when you chose the existing location, line of sight?
Well, when we look at proposed sites, we strictly follow the AGF ordinance, right. And line of sight is certainly one of those criteria that we have to take into consideration. What Bureau of Engineering said is true. We avoid the fronts of properties, and we try to swing it around to the side if we possibly can, so as to not be obscuring the view of the property owner.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Ledoux? So the proposal made by, let me make this summary statement and see if you agree with this. The proposal made by AT&T for the location of this above-ground facility structure meets with the ordinance, and regarding the alternative poles that would be available, the one that is proposed better meets with the ordinance regarding line of sight than the other one.
I wouldn't know that it meets better line of sight than the other one. Both of them, basically meet the ordinance requirements. it's a matter of AT&T's infrastructure, which pole would work to run their lines from. That I don't know. You'd have to talk to AT&T on that. But both sites are not in the main viewscapes of the homes.
Commissioner Penning?
Have we offered to do any landscaping or anything? Just looking at the sidewalk, it looks like, I don't know, in general, a large stretch of sidewalk with not a lot of foliage, etc. I wonder if adding some landscaping around
The ordinance exempts HF facilities from landscape requirements when they are totally surrounded by concrete, such as in this particular case. As far as the appellant's main reason for appealing this, putting the landscape on either side of the cabinet would not obscure the cabinet from his view when he comes out to his front yard.
Commissioner Cento?
Thank you. On Commissioner Penning's note, Jeff, do they decorate these? Do they paint these meter cabinets? Is that cultural affairs? Is that out of the question in terms of beautifying it as opposed to a plain cabinet?
That you would have to talk to AT&T because these are electronic cabinets. They do have probably put out heat, so anything you do to the surface of the cabinet itself can affect the electronics inside. So you would have to ask that question of AT&T.
Could be.
Yes. AT&T?
Kevin, I'm going to talk a little bit. Some of the other meter cabinets I've seen around the city actually recreate the view of what you see in that line of sight. So it's like a continuation. And although it's artificial, it almost not camouflage, it blends in that. And I'm not really sure. I never asked that question. I'd like to ask that question.
The corporation has a policy that we don't paint the cabinets because it violates the warranty from the cabinet manufacturing. So we don't allow shrink wraps or paintings. Though sometimes the community, individuals in the community choose to do that for us, but that's not us.
Self-beautification.
The cabinets are treated with a graffiti-resistant coating on there, so if there's any tagging that's done, then we can go out there and remove the graffiti with solution in the cloth.
You indicated, sir, I'm sorry I forgot your name, but you indicated a moment ago that you had studied the other poll that was suggested by Mr. Finley, correct? You had looked at, you had considered the other poll?
In our locating, yes, we look at all the areas around it, and the pole that, regardless of where we locate the cabinet, we still will have to trench to the pole that we are currently trying to place the cabinet next to. So that isn't a real viable option for us to put the cabinet down there and then trench all the way around to this pole.
Because this pole is...
Because of the cost.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm confused. So the pole where it's proposed.
Correct.
Okay, that's pole A.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Finley said, what about pole B, which is located around the corner?
Correct.
So first question, could the apparatus be could it work as intended at pole A or pole B in the same manner?
No, it cannot.
Okay. So that's why you would have to, even if you put it near pole B, you would have to trench to pole A?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And why is it that it would not operate the same at pole B as it would at pole A?
You can't get aerially, you can't get from pole A to pole B because it's around the corner. They aren't in the same network, so to speak.
Is pole A a stronger pole? I mean, why does it need to be near pole A to function?
Because it's more central to the whole neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, sir. Your name is the one I don't have a card for you. So.
Kevin Tamaki.
Yes. How about I call you Kevin? I can remember that name.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So
if you indicated that the other choice had more, in your research, had more line of sight issues than the current one? The alternative pole, or do you know?
the alternative location has a similar configuration of homes along Khalifa. The appellant's neighbor to the west has windows similar to what he has. Although the only difference is that there's no fence, there's no over 5-foot fence obscuring a view from those windows that his neighbor would have.
And such a fence of some sort exists otherwise.
The appellant has a fence, correct?
Okay. Then Commissioner Jacinto, does your motion stand? I would second it. Regarding the denial of the appeal for the reasons stated in the hearing. Any objection? Without objection, that'll be the order. Thank you. Any problem sending it forthwith?
Thank you, sir.
We'll send number 1 forthwith. Thank you, sir. Mr. Executive Officer, have we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.